And we vibing.
Okay, we're back.
Bosh! We actually had, let's tell them about the great shout out to the traffic ladies this morning.
Yes.
Shout out to you if you're listening to episode 2 of the podcast. We were walking to go and get our morning coffee this morning because we had to take Ted to the vet. But she loves Teddy as well. But anyway, she stopped and you don't know who's listening to the podcast. And anyway, she stopped us and she was like, "Here, loved the podcast episode last week. Just goes to show you that you shouldn't just go down to the lowest calories." And I was like, well, that has just made my day. So
No, it is nice.
So
and
nice.
she loves Tez too. That's a big bonus.
Yes.
So, just to give you a wee bit of background why this is going out late on Monday evening because we're only recording it on a Monday morning. It was Kiwi's birthday. She's 27. So we done things on Friday when we normally record, and then Saturday we were away for food, and yesterday we were at a beach day with our gym.
It was a very busy weekend.
And then this morning we woke up and we were coming in to record it early, but Big Ted's was shaking his head the whole morning.
Flip-flopping.
And I was like, "Keels, there's something wrong with Ted's," because from about 5:30 this morning he would not lie down. And if any of you have seen Big Ted's, he is a chill guy. He just likes sleeping all the time. So he was shaking his head about, and we were like, right, we need to go. When you look it up online, it's ear infection is the most common thing. So we took him into the vet, and she had to clean it out and all, and he was crying.
Bless his wee heart. But he's wild good. You know, he just kind of as much as he was crying, he just let her do it too.
He just stood there and he was just looking at me, and I was like, "Ted, you'll be okay.
You got this, big guy."
But so we got him, and then we got him a pub cup after out of the Alchemist, and then we left him home, and now we're in recording.
Time to rock, time to spit facts and knowledge and whatever.
But we're on track. We're keeping the Monday ritual. We're not breaking it in week 2. God. Right. First off, Keels, how was your weekend?
Oh, it was great. 27. I actually can't believe I'm 27. In my head, I am 21 or something. 18. I used to say I was 18, but 18 seems a bit too young. So 21 to 22 seems a bit more.
Even I have to think about my age. I always just think I'm 24.
24?
I just feel like 24 is just an age I've set at. If I think last year, I'm 24.
Because I suppose at that point you're out of uni, you've got a job, you're mature. Whereas
I wouldn't say mature.
Well, questionable. But 21, you're still in uni or you're only finishing uni. Don't really have your own money fully just yet. You don't really have a big girl job or a big boy job. So 24 is probably a good one. But I quite like 22 or 23. I don't know. But it doesn't matter because age is just a number. And
I know. And I'm way younger.
He is one. It's Owen's birthday podcast will be in 4 weeks.
Birthday podcast.
Podcast.
5 episodes in.
Yeah, it'll be your birthday one because I'm only 4 weeks older than Owen. It is not very much. So it's not. I'm not a cougar. Thank you very much.
So what's your plans? What is the goal of being 27?
I suppose the biggest goal for being 27 is I think we're kind of moving into our proper business era, I would say. I feel like where we're at now, a lot of us has been okay, will we do this? Let's try. Will we do this? Let's try. And I feel like now we're trying to be okay, we are business owners, on business shit. Does that make sense? I'm just trying to be professional. I think this is my year of becoming more in my business zone.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody is maybe there's some coaches, online coaches listening to this, or anyone who started their own business, but it's only really you in it, or maybe you have a partner and you find that your structure's just up the left, you don't know what you're doing on a Monday, you don't know what you're doing on a Tuesday.
Big time.
That's kind of what we're being for the last year, and everything's going good, and we get all the work done, and anybody we're working with is giving good positive responses back, but we feel on the inside that we don't really have a good structure, and over the last 2 months we've actually been building that up, and everything that we preach when it comes to training and nutrition, we're trying to now bring it into our business side of things, and it is helping a lot. It's allowing us to do things like this, get a wee bit more structure. We obviously now have an office. If you ever drive past it, Noma,
always wave. If we're looking out, we'll say hello. You're going to see us
trying to do some work. But yeah, today we're going to keep it more, we're going to continue with the theme of nutrition for this first few podcasts, and we're going to talk a wee bit more about fueling for performance when it comes to longer endurance sessions, so specifically running pieces where it's a 10K run or a half marathon, or even a marathon, because we know a lot of people are taking up running. It's getting more and more popular. Everyone we're chatting to is I love the gym, but I want to run once or twice a week because I might do this half marathon, or I might do this 5K or 10K. So we just want to make sure that you have an understanding of basic nutrition when it comes to fueling, and then we want you to understand the difference of fueling for an event like that versus your average gym session where you might be working out for 30 minutes. Maybe 10 minutes if that's high intensity, 20 minutes if it's strength, and then the other 30 minutes is filler pieces if you're in a class format. Or if you're just going to the gym yourself and doing your own strength sessions, you're probably only really active for about 25 to 30 minutes when you take recovery time between sets and just your average walking about, grabbing equipment, doing different things. But we're going to start with the longer endurance side of things.
Oh no, maybe we should start with the small.
No, we'll come back to that. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Because I'd say we have a lot of people listening who have races coming up or are currently training and probably not maximizing their training because their nutrition's not giving them enough, we'll just say fuel or energy to actually maximize the sessions that they're doing.
Yes.
Because if you're training for a half marathon and the only time you think about carb loading or that side of nutrition is on race day or the day before, your training leading up is probably depleted slightly, or you're probably only working at 70 to 80% every time. And we want to push adaptations, we want to get fitter, and the training is honestly the recipe for a good meal when it comes, or a good event, or a good race.
Whenever we played football, it was like the training has to be harder than the match, is kind of what they would always say. So it is.
That's a bad mindset when it comes to training, but we'll do a podcast on that.
Probably, but we can talk about that
right.
Time.
We'll start from basics. When it comes to a run longer than, we'll say, 45 minutes.
Okay.
We'll start there first. 45 to an hour and 30. That's thinking in the 10-kilometer range.
I would just say the only time you'll need to bring in something during a race is when it's over an hour at a minimum.
Right.
I would say.
We'll start. I have a 10-kilometer race on Saturday. What's my protocol?
Okay,
we'll just start there.
A 10K race, okay, this depends how long. It's always duration based. It's never distance based, because one person could do a 10K and it could take them an hour and a half. You doing a 10K might take you 40 minutes. So you technically don't need to carb load for that, whereas the other individual may need to carb load for that. So we don't look at it as distance based, we look at it as duration based. So if ever I'm chatting to somebody, like say for example, someone's like, Caoileann, I've got this on this weekend, I'll say, how long do we think it's going to take? Because a lot of them will be like, oh, here's my plan. I've got 8 miles this day, 12 miles this day, or whatever. I'm like, no, but we need to know how long that's going to take you, because that then helps us facilitate how much and what time you're going to consume everything at. So let's say, hypothesize, this is going to take you an hour and 20 minutes, right? So it's under that 90-minute threshold, but it's still over the 60 minutes. Do we need to take anything around this, right? So beforehand, if it's an hour and 20 minutes, you probably don't need to do a full 2-day carb load. You probably don't need to do a big carb load either. I think just one singular day, the day before, would be sufficient. And so whenever we talk about carb loading, there's a few things that people need to think about with a carb load. Like, to you, what would a carb load be? Like, if I says to you, Eoin, you're going to carb load, what comes to your head?
Just making sure that I have enough carbohydrates in the day before, doing the equation for my body weight on how much I should take, and making sure my carb stores are loaded before going into that next, or especially race day. You don't want to be like, I need to get 900 carbs on race day, because it's going to leave you feeling sluggish. You're not going to have loads of energy stores in.
So most people probably listening don't realise that, again, it's body weight based, and that it's not just about eating more carbs. You actually have to significantly reduce your fat and protein intake to allow yourself to consume the amount of carbs. Like, remember you were doing half 2 years ago, and you were doing like a carb load for it or whatever, and I'd wrote you out like 900 grams, because obviously you're 90 kilo, and you were like, holy fuck, this is really hard to actually consume all this carb. So carb loading is not exactly an easy feat. It's definitely something you need to practice. But again, let's focus on the task at hand.
Right, let's bring her back.
I'm doing what
We're going to go time zone, right?
Yes.
We're going to work 30 to 60 minutes first.
Okay.
I want people to understand first the basics of carb loading, or taking carbs, or pre-race endurance fueling
for
30 to 60 minutes, because that's very applicable to like a HYROX race, or a 5-kilometer race, or a 10-kilometer race for people.
Right.
Okay?
So you're thinking actually shorter distance?
Shorter distance just to begin.
Okay.
What would I do?
So you don't need to carb load for that. You definitely don't. So if you're consuming a decent amount of carbs on a regular basis, like from breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, you're not necessarily going to need a carb load for a 5K race, anything that's really under 60 minutes. All we'd want to do is be a little bit more actionable with the carbs you're consuming the day before. So everything you're consuming the day before is what you're going to be utilising during this race or this session the next day. So it's not the morning off, or it's not that one snack before. They're all topper-uppers. Everything you're doing the day before is what's going to actually be sort of worked through and put into the muscles where it needs to be. And where all this carbohydrate goes, whenever you break it down, is what we call glycogen, which is stored carbohydrates. And so, like, for example, if you carb load correctly, you would probably put on around 2 kg. Like, if you step in the scales, your weight would be... I know, well, a lot of people, that would put a lot of people off, being like, but Caoileann, I don't want to put weight on. And I'm like, this is not body fat. This is purely, like, you know what it is. It's purely glycogen. And with every gram of glycogen that you store 3 grams of water. So there's 4 grams already. So that's why, for example, in your muscle, you can store up to 500 grams of this stuff. 500 grams of glycogen, which is technically, if you do it properly, additional 2 kilo on top of just your normal everyday body weight. So that's why, like, probably an easy way to think about this is why people who, for example, do like a keto diet for a short period of time, they lose a huge amount of weight in the first 1 to 2 weeks, because what they're actually losing there is glycogen. All that stored carbohydrate, their body will utilize it up first. And so that's why whenever they go back to eating carbohydrates, it replenishes that. And that's why they see 1 to 2 kg come on so quickly. None of that is body fat. It's all just carbs, which if you're then going to be utilizing during a game, within a few days, that's going to be going away. So it is. So for, say, 5K, you're probably not going to need to do a carb load. And we'll talk about when you do need to do a carb load later on in the episode. But for this, I would just focus on that day before, slightly increasing my carbohydrates, because if it is a race, you do want to be going in with like just extra storage, making sure you're fully, like, definitely not a deficit. I would definitely make sure you're at maintenance calories. And to work that out, if you haven't listened to the first episode of the podcast, you definitely can go back and listen to that. And I tell you even about how to work out the amount of carbs to consume. But in that, you're just going to make sure at breakfast, lunch and dinner, and then even your snacks, you're probably going to take away a protein snack and make sure that every snack you have is some form of carbohydrate. The type of carb the day before matters a little bit less. Like, it can be sugar-based if you're finding it difficult to get enough in. Like, if you're like, God, I feel like I've had a while lot today. Sometimes then even a wee glass of pure orange juice is going to be very easy just to get extra carbs in.
Before we go any further,
yes,
what's the 2 types of carbs? Just so people listening understand what you mean by the type of carb that you want to take in.
Yeah.
Give a quick overview of the 2 types of carbs.
So you would have complex carbs. And complex carbs, imagine you're chopping wood. And if something's complex, it's going to take you a longer time to chop. That's essentially what we're thinking about whenever we think about complex carbs. It just takes your body a little bit longer to break it down. So instead of you getting this massive blood sugar rise, you just get this like chill wave, like we're just like cruising. That's what we're trying to achieve majority of the days, to keep our blood sugar nice and stable, kind of within these 2 little walls. We're trying to keep it between that. If we're just constantly hammering the other type of sugar, or the other type of carb, which is simple, we're just getting these massive peaks and troughs throughout the day where your energy's flying, drops very quickly, you feel like shit, you need something to pick you up again, drops very quickly. And that's how a lot of people do eat, and that's why they feel so poorly. Just throughout the day, they feel tired, feel sluggish. They're probably deficient in a lot of things as well.
But they obviously have their place when it comes to certain things. But
100%.
Give some examples of a simple carb first.
So simple carb will be anything that is sugar. So it could be a banana. So it could be even like, I think a lot of people think, oh, well, it's fruit, so it's like technically healthy. Of course, it's good for you, but anything in the wrong context is just going to be not ideal. So if we're just banging fruit constantly throughout the day, it is still just sugar. You're probably not going to get very much sustenance from that. You're just going to get these massive rises and drops. Another thing could just be adding sugar to your tea, for example. There's another way. Sweets, you've got even, for example, syrups that people might put in their coffee, jellies, all that kind of jazz, chocolate, biscuits and stuff.
And then complex carbs is
obviously things like our rice. Even more bonus points, so if we can go for the browner options or the less processed options, so like brown rice, brown pasta, sourdough bread, and even like, for example, going to the bakeries.
Why would you go wholemeal brown rather than just plain white?
Because of the fibre content. So when we say something's complex, as I say, it takes a longer time to break down. If that's got a higher fibre content, it takes an even longer time to break down, and it helps improve your gut health. So it does, so it helps kind of keep your bowels moving in a nice, healthier way, versus having the same, like I always say, it's just a better trade-off. Because if you're having white bread, you might as well just go for the sourdough, because it's pretty much the same thing. Often it's nicer, but it's much better for you, and you're getting a lot more bang for your buck from it as well. So it is, where something like white bread might be more beneficial 30 minutes before a training session, because it's digested very quickly, there's a bit more sugar in it, and there's no fibre. So it's not that anything's ever good or bad, it's just about knowing when to have it. So it is, because everything technically has its place, but if we're ODing on one thing, it probably means we're missing out on something else. So complex, I would always say, have your complex carbs in your meals, and that will be combined with something like proteins and fats to keep everything nice and relaxed, because whenever you combine complex carbs with protein and fats, it slows down absorption even more, which is ideal when it comes to meal, because that makes you feel nice and full for a long period of time. So you're not eating something, an hour later you're starving and you just feel like you need to keep snacking throughout the day, because that's how we end up with this up and down, and like that done consistently could end up with something like type 2 diabetes, possibly an increase in weight gain as well, surplus that can affect our heart health, and just that's kind of how those chronic diseases can occur. So we definitely want to make sure that when we're looking at our meals, we're prioritising making them big, filling, and they've got all the components in them. And then for your snacks, I would tend to work on allocating your snacks. So like one snack might be a protein snack to kind of make up, say, the missing 20 grams that you're looking for. And you might combine that with fruit. So that way, instead of like, say it's a yogurt bowl, instead of just having the fruit by itself, because at the end of the day, it is still sugar, you're actually combining it with a protein that's going to slow down the absorption of that sugar. So that way you're still going to feel fuller for longer, but you're still getting the benefits of the fruit and the vitamins and minerals from it as well, and the fibre. Does that make sense?
Yes, right. Let's come back again.
Okay.
So you've talked about simple and complex carbohydrates. Where I have a 30 to 60 minute run tomorrow. I don't know how long it's going to take me. It's a 5K. I haven't run a 5K in a long time.
Okay.
I'll be happy to hit 45 minutes. What should I prioritize now? It's the night off, or it's the night before. I'm having a meal, and then my race is tomorrow at 2 o'clock.
Okay, so in this meal, I would make sure that it's relatively lower in fat content. So instead of, say, chicken thighs, you may be doing chicken breast. Instead of like 20% fat mince, you might do 5% mince. Something that's a little bit leaner, because the fat content, as I say, it does make things slow down in terms of digestion. But it can also mean if you're not used to that on a regular basis, you could feel a bit more sluggish as well. So I would try and keep the fat content a little bit lower. And then I would decrease my protein source a little bit. So instead of maybe doing a really big portion of chicken or a really big portion of beef or whatever it is that I'm having, I'd probably reduce that down to maybe less than 100 grams of whatever it is, and then increase my carb source. So I might even have 2 carb sources here. So I might do brown rice with maybe a slice of garlic bread on the side. That way I'm getting a little bit of the fibre content, the complex carb, but I'm also getting the garlic bread on the side that's probably white. It's a little bit easier to digest. That way you're not going to bed feeling overly full, but you've got a little bit extra carbs that you can then use that next morning, so you can towards that race. So that's the only thing I would change in that night
Yes,
before.
you're basically trying to keep your fat content low, you're decreasing your protein slightly, and then you're just trying to bump up whatever carbs you're taking in your meal.
But you don't necessarily, that whole day, you don't need to be pushing carbs, because this is less than 60 minutes. You don't need to be doing that at every meal. I would just keep your breakfast and your lunch the same, snacks pretty much the same. It would only really be maybe that meal the night before that I would increase the carbs in.
Yeah. And then you wake up the next morning, you're probably going to have breakfast around 8 o'clock, and then you're going to have...
What time is this race at?
2 o'clock.
Let's Oh, it's at 2 p.m.?
Yeah.
Oh, so it's in the afternoon. Okay.
So you're going to have maybe breakfast at 8 o'clock, and then you're going to have a snack or another meal at around 11. What would you recommend for the average person there?
So I would still keep this relatively carb-based rather than like classic eggs or something. I would keep the eggs, again, because they're protein and fat content. I would keep this more to like cereal-based, oat-based, or even if you're just doing like maybe toast with even like a bit of jam or something on the side. The only thing is I would say that might be a little bit small and you might be hungry after that. So probably something more cereal-based would be a good idea here. And you can go sugar cereal if you wanted to, but because the race isn't at 2 p.m, I would probably still keep this complex. So for a cereal, bran flakes would be a great option here with maybe a little bit of fruit mixed in there, because your bran flakes have loads of fibre in them and relatively low in sugar. And then by adding the fruit in there, you're of course getting the bowels moving so that you're not going to be feeling constipated going into this race at 2 p.m. I would probably even then, you could hold off your caffeine if you wanted to in the morning time till probably that mid-morning snack around 11 if you wanted. But if you tend to have, say, 2 coffees a day, or you enjoy having caffeine, you probably have your normal coffee with your breakfast at, say, 8 a.m. with that relatively carb-heavy breakfast. And then at 11 a.m. or, say, 12 before the race again, I would have another bit of caffeine. Mainly because caffeine does make a lot of people's bowels go, and the last thing you want is to be taking this caffeine 20 minutes before the race. The next thing you feel like your bowels are going to go. So they do. So I would always think, you have to always think about the toilet breaks. So I would try and get that caffeine in at least probably an hour beforehand anyway, because caffeine takes 45 minutes to kick in anyway.
Yeah,
so you're going to need
we'll come to caffeine and training and protocols.
But that mid-morning snack then beforehand, I would make that sugar-based. So that's going to be purely the simple carbs we talked about there. And this could be around 60 minutes beforehand. So if you even have your breakfast, say 8:30, round sort of, if this race isn't to 2, around 12 or 1, that's when I would probably be suggesting. Like throughout that morning, you could probably sip on pure orange juice, a little bit of Lucozade if you wanted to. But as I said, this is only 45 minutes max we're talking here. So you don't overthink it either. A wee piece of fruit or something would be perfect, just so you don't feel hungry. And then that 45 to 60 minute before window is when we're really pushing the sugar. So it is. So again, it could be a squares bar, and I would probably want you to aim for 1 times your body weight here. Again, if we're really pushing race competition vibes, we're really looking to PB here, I would be aiming for 1 times your body weight. So for example, 90 kilos, we're aiming for around 90.
87.
Oh, sorry, 87.
87.
Apologies.
Week 8 of the project, 87.
Week 8 on the grind. So if you're
So
87,
a squares bar for me typically is not enough.
It's not enough, definitely not.
And the second thing I want to preface here is, if I ate my breakfast at 8 or 8:30, I would be very hungry come 1 o'clock.
Yes.
Which would be detrimental. So you have to think, it's always personal preference as well. If you prefer eating more frequently, if you have a higher appetite, or if you're someone who likes having breakfast and then lunch, you could probably have more of a meal at around 11 again, if you want it. And then your simple
But
carbs.
again, just keeping that meal very carb-based, reduced. Like even if you enjoyed eggs, doing maybe 1 egg rather than 2 eggs. If you liked, say, a chicken sandwich, we could do that, but just keep the chicken relatively low. Like don't add too much chicken to it as such, so it's just not too much protein and not too much fat content that's going to make you feel like it's still sitting in you when you're doing this race. Because especially if you're pushing yourself for a PB, all of that blood.
Everybody's pushing themselves.
Everybody's pushing themselves for a PB.
That's the avatar we're chasing there.
Now, if I'm doing that, that means I do not want to be feeling this in my stomach when I'm literally balls to the walls, like pushing myself. So I want to make sure that this is digested. So always keep it as well something you've had before. We're not trying something brand new here the day, the morning, or the day before this race. This is all, ideally, we've practiced it, we've practiced this before. Like this is a protocol as such. This is like your race protocol that we have practiced, we know works, happy days. And that way the only thing that could get you is nerves. So that way if you've got like a funny tummy, you got butterflies in your stomach, that's really the only thing that's making you feel like it's difficult to eat. It's not that, oh, I've never had this before and it's spicy and now I've got diarrhea and I have to run to the bathroom. We want to avoid that as much as possible. So definitely if you were, as you kind of said, like you might even have the 2 meals but make them 2 slightly smaller meals, relatively carb based, and then that 45 to 60 minute window beforehand, that's when we're pushing the sugar. So as I said, you're 87. So squares bar is relatively less than 30 grams. Most of the time they're under that. Some of them are 23, some of them are 28 grams. For me, if I'm 65 kilo in like 2 weeks, lol, I'm like 67. So if I was 67 kilo, 28 grams, it's probably not enough. So what I might do is do the squares bar, but I also might have a banana. So that's me getting up towards 50 grams of carbs, which is much better.
And that kind of protocol is applicable to everybody. You could have a squares bar, a banana, and some Luxury Sport. Perfect. And then you're bumping up and bumping up. You could have 2 squares bars, a banana, and a Luxury Sport if you're bigger. I would just practice this. If you're going on long runs leading up to a race, have like a simulation that you're running the exact same time. You're going to eat your pre-race meal. You're going to see how you feel going into that run. If you feel like very heavy or your stomach's a wee bit upset or you're like, I probably ate too close or I didn't feel a lot of energy from that, or I probably would need to change around what I ate for breakfast this morning because it's kind of sat me the whole morning. Once you play around with it and you do it more and more, you start to get used to what works for you. And it might be weird what kind of foods you prefer on a day like that. Like sometimes bananas mightn't be the one and you just can't stomach them and it's something you can't eat, or you might prefer banana and honey with like toast and that might be your go-to. So I would just...
Jelly babies?
Jelly babies. But the only thing I would say with jelly babies, they're very easy to overeat.
Oh, 100%.
Like if you buy a packet of jelly babies and you're just sitting eating at them, you'll be 5 or 6 jelly babies in and it'll feel like you haven't had one. Well, this is personal experience. And then you end up eating the whole bag and it's only like 5 minutes later you're like, oh, my stomach is
jelly
so
belly.
full. Yeah. So I would say just be cautious of them bigger bags of sweets that you feel like you can just eat and eat and eat. That your stomach doesn't really get full from them, because the second thing that could happen there is you eat the whole bag and you're like, I'm still a wee bit hungry. You eat something on top of that and then you're like, all these foods combined together just aren't good.
Yeah.
So preface again, always practice this, like the same thing you would practice your race runs or your tempos or your speeds that you're going to go at. Practice your fueling leading up to the day.
I think just one of the biggest things is the gastric distress, like just not knowing how your stomach's going to be, and like you have to hypothesize that you're going to be a wee bit more nervous the morning off, which again can make your bowels run. So you have to make sure that you're getting that, like just practice your timing so you know when your bowels are typically moving, and making sure you're getting.
And obviously 2 o'clock's a weird time. Like most of the races that you'll enter around, especially Ireland anyway, it's like 9 a.m. start or 11 a.m. start. That's like your go-to. So
if it was that, though,
it really isn't that
do?
hard to prep, because you only have a 1 meal window. Realistically, if you're waking up at 6 a.m., you're probably eating at 7 for a 9 o'clock race or a 6:30. I would always prefer to eat earlier. And then if I was like, getting closer, and I was like, I'm going to have something small or Luxury Sport or a few jellies or something. But Yeah, that's
Yeah,
slightly
if it was a
easier.
9 a.m. or 11 a.m., I would ideally have yourself like a relatively complex carb meal beforehand. Again, for me, typically, I wouldn't even do that. I personally don't get up early enough. So I would probably just have a big bowl of Cocoa Pops. And then around 30 to 60 minutes beforehand, I would have probably either pure orange juice or a few jellies or a Squares bar. So I'm really getting that burst of sugar. But some people could actually get up and, for example, make a big bowl of oats, and that suits them perfectly. But that's what I'm saying. You have to figure out what works for you and what suits your
Yeah.
gut.
And if you're really a person that doesn't like eating food, there is lots of options out there. Like I know Marchon supplements have a workout fuel. It has like one scoop has 30 grams of carbs, 25 to 30 grams of carbs in it. And it's a really nice tasting mixture. It's like water, it's like juice you're drinking.
Yeah.
And that could be your go-to. If you all you can stomach's a banana, you could be like, right, I'm gonna buy this supplement. I'm gonna practice with it on my weeks leading up. I'm gonna put one scoop in water, shake it. It tastes like orange juice, or the one's pink lemonade that I had was really nice. And I'm gonna eat a banana, and there's 50 grams, close to 50 grams of carbs that I wouldn't get otherwise, because I just can't stomach eating on the day because I'm so nervous. And that
then
is common
even
for people to have. Like,
if you don't even want to buy supplements, I suppose, like literally liquids are honestly the best option, because liquids will be
Yeah.
absorbed quicker than food anyway.
I do know orange just doesn't sit in my stomach well.
Well, this is it. And again, something like that, fruit
Yeah.
juices can make people's
like
bowels
I've
run as well.
tried orange juice before races and stuff, and I don't feel good drinking it. I'm like, it just doesn't sit well. Once
Then
again,
there's
personal
apple
preference.
juice, cranberry juice, Lucozade Sport, like all those different options as well.
So many juices.
So there are so many juices. that you can
Right,
opt for.
that's a 5 to 10k. We're in the 30 to 60 minute range there. Now we'll bump it right up and we'll go 90 minutes plus.
Well, anything 90 minutes plus is going to be pretty much the same setup anyway, apart from the duration in between that we're going to increase.
Are we not going to carb
So
load
it's-
for 90 minutes plus?
We are. Anything over 90 minutes, you're going to carb load.
Okay.
So you are. So that's why I'm kind of saying, like, whether it's a half marathon or a full marathon, the protocol principles remain the same in terms of preparation. So you will be doing a 2-day carb load for that.
Yeah. So let's just chat. We'll focus solely on the pre-race prep. We'll not
Yes.
chat intra-race just yet.
No, just beforehand. So for the race, right? This is me specifically talking about the day off your race. 2 days before that, you're going to start carb loading.
Right. Hypothetically, I'm racing Belfast Marathon on Sunday at 9 a.m.
Oh, is that on this Sunday, is it?
I don't know, maybe the half marathon's on this Sunday. But I'm running
It is. I think
This
it
is
is. for 2
hypothetical.
weeks or something. Okay,
Friday.
hypothetically.
I start Friday.
Friday. Now, this is where knowing your body weight can be helpful in terms of how many carbs you're going to aim for. So, for example, you said 87. We are aiming for close to 10 times your body weight in carbohydrates. As I say, this is no easy feat. So for you, you're aiming for
We're going to make it easy.
We're going to make it easy. You're aiming for over 800 grams. For me, I'm aiming for over 600 grams. If you're sitting there thinking, Jesus Christ, Caoileann, I don't even know like what that seems like, don't panic, we will get there. But any increase in, like, as much as I'm giving you specific amounts in terms of grams to aim for here, any increase in your carbohydrates on both of those days is going to be beneficial, because it still means you're going to have more of that stored glycogen in your muscle. So don't panic if you can't hit, say, the 600 or the 700 or 800 that you need to hit. If you're going from 200 and you're now eating 400, that still means you're probably going to perform better than you would have at previously only eating 200 grams. But anyway, let's hypothesize we're aiming for this 10 times our body weight. So now you're sitting there and you're thinking, God, maybe I'm 50 kilo, maybe I'm 60, 80, 100, whatever I am. I'm aiming for close to 10 times that. 8 to 10 would be a good range. So this is on both days. This is not halved. Some people think that because I've said over 2 days, they're then taking this, say yours is 800, they're then, so it's at 400 on Friday and 400 on Saturday. It's not. It's 800 on the Friday and 800 on the Saturday. So it's a lot of carbs. Like, we are consuming a lot of carbs here. This is why we have to practice this, because if you've never done this before and you just go hammering this amount of carbs 2 days before a race, you're not going to feel good, because it's not healthy. Like, carb loading is a tool. The same way I would say something like tracking is a tool, carb loading is a tool that we utilize in performance to enhance performance. It's not for general optimal health, because how you have to eat to get this amount of carbs in is typically a little bit unhealthy. Like, we're not getting fiber in, we're not getting protein in, we're probably not getting a lot of nutrients, things like that. We're just getting a lot of sugar, to be honest. And the reason we have to significantly reduce down the fiber content, the fat and the protein is kind of what I've referred to at the beginning. They slow down absorption too much. And if I'm trying to eat so many carbs, if I'm eating these big ass meals with over 50 grams of protein in them, it's not going to be digested quick enough, and I'm just going to find it too difficult to get enough carbs in. But also, you have to think about the calories here as well. So if you're aiming for 800 calories, we know that 1 gram of carbs has 4 calories. So 8 times 4, like there's 3,200 calories. That's your maintenance pretty much. So if you were to then try and get your normal protein goal, normal fat goal on top of this amount of carbs, you're going to be eating close to 5,000 calories.
Let's go.
Which
Right.
is not necessary, is what I'm trying to get at. Like, you don't need to do that.
Yeah, so the main focus is 2 days before, workout, ideally take your body weight that morning.
Yeah.
10 times that. That's your carb goal. You're trying to be within 100 of it.
Around
Ideally.
that,
If you can be
ideally.
within 100 of it, you're in an optimal position. If you're really struggling and you're 200 away, you're in a far better position than you were to start with if you didn't do this, because it's like saying, oh, I would love to run 4 times a week leading up to this marathon, but you only end up running 3 or only end up running 2. It's still better than you not running at all. You're going to be in a better position going into the race. You're going to have more fuel to work with when you actually start. And then when we talk you through your nutrition, you're going to see how you can keep topping these up as you go through.
Yes.
On the Friday morning, I'm going to start with, obviously it's planning's the biggest thing. You say this is hard, but it's only hard because people go through their day and they're not planning ahead.
thinking
Same
ahead.
way, if you're trying to be in a deficit, if you don't have some kind of plan for your meals, you don't understand what your macros are, and you're just trying to wing it on breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's when you kind of run into the roadblock of over-consuming when you're in a deficit, but under-consuming your carbohydrates when you're trying to carb load for this kind of thing.
So let me give you an example of, say, 600 grams of carbs, right? And what I'll do is actually I have a 600 gram example and I have an 800 gram example, and I'll put them in, maybe I'll put it on my direct me link in bio.
The show
You
notes.
can download in the show notes.
I don't know how to do that.
Well, we can do it.
Yeah.
You can just put in the caption, and that way you can download it and like have it for yourself, because I am only remembering off the top of my head here. So let's say you're aiming for 600 grams of carbs Friday and Saturday. What does that look like? Now, normally you might get up, you might have eggs and toast, and or maybe you have like your protein oats. You're removing the protein from this. We are not having eggs. We're not having the protein in the oats anymore.
I think the guys know this, right? Your day, you're reducing your protein, you're reducing your fats, and you're just trying to
Yes.
double up on the carbs. But what if you're more so give us active examples of breakfast, lunch, and
Yes.
dinner that is going to increase your carbs, and how you can do this sustainably. Because if you're someone who does need a lot of carbs as it is, and you're very protein heavy in your meals, for example, I'm pretty protein heavy, I would maybe have 2 slices of
And
sourdough
sometimes
in the
fat
breakfast,
content
and
too.
then maybe a half a bag or a bag of rice at dinner. But that's kind of my main carb source throughout the day.
Yes. So what we're going to do is, say you have oats, say you have 40 grams of oats. That's what a lot of people would aim for. I know
That's
yours is,
a
I know you do 90,
not a
but
lot.
most people do between 40 and 60. You're going to do 60 to 70. Like, you're going to increase that portion, or you're going to, keep your oats the same, take the protein powder out of it, and have, say, 2 slices of toast on the side.
And what can I put in my toast to increase the carbs?
You could do jam, marmalade, honey. You could even do banana and honey on them if you
Yeah.
wanted to. Like, you can go crazy. Like, you're having, say, double carb source here at breakfast time, or if you are happy to, double your portion of oats. So you can, and then you could even drizzle more honey on top of the oats. And I would probably reduce, say, like, obviously if you enjoy your peanut butter, you can keep that there or whatever. But I would increase your honey, because it's a very easy way to get extra sugar without really increasing the
Yeah.
volume. Probably could fire a few berries in there, but I wouldn't just like load up on the fruit too much either, because of course fruit, as much as it is a carb, it's relatively low in calories, so you're actually not getting too much bang for your buck versus if you were to increase your actual oats portion. So increasing the honey, you could even add in some dates in there as well to snack on. That could be very handy. And I would also add a glass of pure orange juice or apple juice or something that you enjoy there, as well as just like your normal tea, coffee, or whatever it is
Yeah.
you would have. I would have a wee shot of pure orange juice, kind of like you're at the hotel buffet.
Just go mad.
Go crazy.
mad. The only thing I would preface is make sure that when you're doubling things, think about appetite and how you feel and
Yes,
satiety, because
exactly.
like doubling your oats could make you very full for a long period of time. And if you're someone who doesn't have a massive appetite as is, going from 40 grams oats to 80, even though 80 grams oats is not a lot, I would say you're probably going to feel a lot fuller, and then that's going to
Yeah.
eat into your lunch, your snacks. So if it is the sense that you're like, oh, if I eat more oats, I'm going to feel so full, go for the toast and put loads of honey on it and things like that, because that's going to be a lot easier.
And like even 2 dates is very handy to eat. Like that's very
Yeah.
easy to consume, along with the pure orange juice. Like adding those on as we,
Breakfast muffins, things like that, like wee small.
they're probably easier to add on
Yeah.
than actually doubling your oats. So they are. But honey is always a really good go-to to add on anything, just to increase your sugar content. We don't
I
want to
put
do
it
this
on
with
everything.
We love
Everything.
honey. I actually had hot
Honey on my rice, on
I had hot honey barbecue wings there for like a birthday meal out like last week or something. Oh my God, it was so good. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. So let's talk then mid-morning. So like you're going to be consistently snacking on carbs here throughout the day. So mid-morning, where you might normally have a protein yogurt, we're scratching that, and you might just do like a normatic yogurt. Do you ever see those, like the ones that have the granola?
Yeah.
And like the full sugar yogurt, which typically I would say probably not the best option for general health. But for something like this, it's a better option than your protein yogurt because the protein yogurt has basically no carbs.
Dried mango, cheat code.
Fantastic. Yeah, really,
So
really
easy
good.
to eat. You can close your eyes, start chewing. It feels like you're eating Haribos.
Yeah, Eoin really likes them.
And I could eat a whole bag. They are very high in calories, but they're very high in carbs too. They're simple.
Yeah. So
sugars.
even having, like, say you had a nomadic yogurt and say you had a pack of dried mango and you took a handful of it and you snacked on that mid-morning or even throughout your work, just snacking on dried mango, perfect. And again, that sort of yogurt that you're having with the sugary granola, that's what we want. We don't want like the sort of non-sugary one or the one that's maybe made to be low in sugar.
Yeah.
We want that sugar because that way we're
more
getting more carbs in. No more 0% FIA for this particular option. I would rather you had the sugary yogurt. And often they are tastier anyway. But it also just means it'll be turned over quicker and you can eat again. Lunch comes around where typically you might have, say, like a chicken sandwich, or you have like a pasta dish, or maybe you have, I don't know, what would you normally have for lunch away? What's your go-to?
It's the same.
Same thing. Fair enough.
I go eggs and stuff all the time, but
so you could
just
still do
less eggs, more sourdough.
Less
like
eggs, more sourdough. You could also do like another wee, like you could have like, say, your normal, say you're having a sandwich, I would just directly reduce down the protein portion in the middle. Do your 2 slices of bread, but again, something like the dried mango on the side. Maybe you're having a bowl of cereal on the side as well, like a bowl of Cocoa Pops, bowl of bran flakes, something along those lines would be a great wee option to have.
So really nothing changes throughout the day. You're just trying to up your carbs to keep everything simple. There's a list of ingredient or the list of things you can eat that's going to bump you up as well, like the dried mango, the yogurt, things like that. But in terms of your main meals, you're just adding more carbs in a sense. You just have to understand. You first have to get an understanding of what carbs are and what ones you want to add and double up on, and then you need to identify what your proteins are in your normal meals and just reduce them slightly.
And then at dinner, you could even go for 2 carb sources rather than just one. So like you might do the full bag of rice, but you'll also have, as I say, like the garlic bread, or you could maybe even do some crispy potatoes on the side. And then you have maybe just like a little bit of a protein source. That could be fantastic. And again, drizzle some honey on there. Fab. We're getting even more carbs on top. And then before bed, I would again have something else. You could have, say, 2 Weetabix with some milk and again some honey drizzled on top of that as well. That way you're still getting a little bit of fibre content. You're not kind of not having any fibre at all. Or again, bowl of Cocoa Pops is very handy. If you've caught yourself and you've been really slack, like a big bowl of Cocoa Pops will see you a good 50 grams of carbs, like very easily. So something like that before bed, but I would still have after your meal, I would definitely have another carb stack, and often cereal is a very easy option to eat. It's just a bit easier to consume. Something like that before bed. That way, whenever you wake up, you probably will be heavier, but this is not
We're not
body
even
fat.
I wouldn't even say we're weighing ourselves during this period.
We don't need to weigh ourselves.
If performance your goal, you're already weighed yourself to find what your carb goal is. Don't step on the scales the day after your first day of carb loading.
Not necessary.
You're crazy. Come on.
And if it does go up, it means you've done it properly, basically.
And we are not looking.
So that means already we're sort of halfway to bulking up. So as I say, in the muscle, you can hold 500 grams of glycogen. You can hold around 80 grams in your liver. And we want to kind of load up both of them before the race. That's why we're doing that for 2 days.
And then the same protocol the next day. And then the next day you wake up. The race is probably early in the morning if it's a half marathon or marathon. So you're probably running around 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. That morning you're just really topping up. Kind of you've filled the bus load and you're driving straight for... Yeah.
So you are. So this again, it could be just literally a bowl of cereal. It could be a slice of toast with honey. It could be pancakes with a bit of honey, like whatever you enjoy, whatever you know you works. It might even just be 2 Squares bars. Like keep it super simple because again, nerves have kick in here. So we're keeping this as something real small, real simple. But again, aiming for around, I would say 1 gram times your body weight in terms of carb intake. Yeah. So you are. So for you, around 87 grams. For me, around 67. If I had a big bowl of Cocoa Pops, I'd probably get that along with a flat white.
And then we move into race.
Yes.
Starting
intra.
On the start line, what do I need to have on me on the start line? Ideally, in terms of intra workout.
Okay, so if you're doing gels, right? Now, in this, first thing we're going to have at least 40 to 45 minutes into this race. Regardless of distance you've covered, we're working solely off time duration here. 40 to 45 minutes in is when you're going to take your first 20 grams of carbs. If you're a larger individual like yourself, you might aim for closer to 30 grams. So you might...
What does an average gel have?
20 grams. You can purchase ones that have 30 grams or 40 grams, like if you needed to, but most of them are 20 grams. And if you really wanted to, what you could do, for example, is just increase the duration at which you take yours rather than buying different gels. Like you could just keep the same gels, but take them a little bit sooner. Yeah. So you might take yours at 30 minutes in, but most of us will probably start around 40 minutes in. So we will. So you'll look at the clock, see 40 minutes, you're like, oh, time for my first gel. So that's your first top-up gel. If it's a half marathon, I would probably encourage you to take your first caffeine gel here. Because remember, caffeine takes 45 minutes to kick in. So this will kick in around the last kick of your half marathon. If it's sort of in around a 2 hour window, this will be a good time to take this first one. So I'd make that first one caffeine, but that's the only caffeine one you're going to have. You're not going to have another caffeine one because we do not want you to have an accident during this race. So first one, if you can, bonus points if it's a caffeine one, 40 minutes in. Then every 30 minutes after that, you're going to take another gel or another 20 grams of carbs. So it is. So it doesn't have to be a gel. Ideally, it's just at least 20 grams of carbs. For reference, the jelly babies we talked about, that's 4 jelly babies. So it is. If it's a packet of Haribo's, one of those like Halloween packets.
Jelly babies are working hard to give you 20
They are working
grams.
hard.
Eh?
The little bags of Haribo's that you can get around Halloween time, they're 20 grams of carbs. If it's liquids that you're working off.
I just can't chew when I'm running. But
I can't do the gels. You know, I do the jelly babies.
I need something that's quick, that's out of my possession, that I'm not chewing, because my mouth is dry as it is, like, and I need a swig of water or something,
But again, something that's usually our go-to, like it's either sweeties or it's a gel.
Yeah.
Most people kind of work off a gel, but ideally whatever you're consuming is going to be at least 20 grams of carbs. So as I say, the first one, if you are working off gels, if you can get a gel that has caffeine in it, that's probably the best time to take that one, 40 minutes in. And then say that's 40 minutes, at an hour 10 or an hour 15, you're going to take your next 20 grams. An hour 40, you're going to take another 20 grams. And then you get the vibe, every 20 minutes thereafter. And that applies the same thing to a full marathon as well. Like you'll still do your 2-day carb load.
And what's the science behind this? Why are we taking continuous gels every 30 minutes? How is our glycogen stores being depleted? How are we using energy?
So you've just spent 2 days loading up your muscle, right?
I should be a powerhouse. I shouldn't
you
need
would
any
think.
I'm like a hibernated hedgehog ready to get out of the...
Ready to go stomping, but that's not the case. So when you carb load, that's really only enough for 90 to 120 minutes, which technically if you're doing say for example, your half marathon only took you an hour and 36 minutes. But think of it like your phone, right? If you get to an hour into this race, you're now hitting down to 30% or 20% of the stores that are in your muscle. And it's like the diesel light goes off, everything's like ding, 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 ding. Jesus Christ, we don't want to break down here in the last 5 minutes of this race. Regardless if you're going for longer, most people's half marathon time might be closer to 2 hours. So they will. So we don't want to wait till we get to low power mode to start topping up. It's too late at that point. We have to remember everything has a time to break down to actually get where it needs to go. So we are wanting to stay as, basically if you had your phone on the charger all the time, we're trying to stay as close to 100% as possible so that we're never seeing any depletion in our actual capacity to do the entire race. We are staying fully locked. Boom, boom, boom. So you'll notice if you were to take your weight, for example, after the race, it would be significantly lower than what it was when you first started it because you've still used up so much of that carbs despite even topping up with the 20 grams every 30 minutes. But that's the reason you're utilising something like a gel, because the carbs that they utilise are formulated to be very fast acting, very quickly into the bloodstream, so you're able to use it straight away. You'll often actually feel it in yourself. If you left it too long to take a gel or you forgot, the moment you take it, within 5 to 10 minutes, you'll feel this pickup of energy. You'll be like, oh my God, thank God, because your blood sugar often gets quite low. If you didn't say take anything for that whole 90 minutes.
Oh, I've done it.
You've done it before. You can vouch to this. You get to that last 2 to 3 mile and you are just hanging on by a thread. Tell them your experience.
What
it was Oma half marathon 2 years ago.
Yes, very first half marathon I've ever ran. Didn't do a lot of training for it. Went in. Was kind of naive. I was like, I can run.
Owen has this natural prowess to be a really good runner. So
no, I just have unwavering self-belief that I can do something from watching other people do it. So I was like, I can run 140 easily, sub 140 easily. So I went into this race, started first 10 mile, felt great. I was running, I was looking at my clock, or I was looking at my watch, 10 mile in, I was like, I'm going to pick this up and just hammer these last 3 miles. I was on for 132, 133, and about 10.5 mile, it was a big, long, straight road. I could just feel my legs starting to get heavier and heavier, and I was like, oh my God. And then it just got to the point,
power mode.
I was like, I couldn't hold my pace anymore. I wasn't out of breath, I wasn't I don't feel that tired, but my legs just got so heavy. Obviously, my body was just out of energy stores. I was trying to recruit anything I could find. And the last 2.5 miles were terrible. I suffered. But then the next year, I used like one gel that year, felt better. The next year after that, I was able to run like a 132 from using gels and just fueling a wee
And
bit
like for
better.
you, all you would need for a 130 is 2 gels, 40 minutes
Well,
in,
like,
and then an hour.
I recently done Antrim Coast there last 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago we done it.
Maybe it's 2 weeks ago.
And I only took one gel, 45 minutes in, felt good, finished strong, wasn't like, oh, I feel depleted here, no way. But I think that was a 30 gram gel.
So it had a bit more in it.
I think so.
Yeah.
And
so
I'm
that would've
definitely
been
sure
fine
there's
for you.
caffeine in it too.
And because you carb loaded, you obviously had enough for the 90 minutes anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But yeah, recapping on your whole fueling protocol, 45, depending on what athlete you are, 30 to 45 minutes in is your first gel.
Yeah.
And then every 30 minutes after that, you want to be topping up your stores in some way. You could be someone that takes one gel 45 minutes in, 4 jelly babies 30 minutes after that, 4 jelly babies 30 minutes after that. And if you're doing a marathon, you know it's very long, but you don't want to be buying like 5 or 6 gels over the course of 4 to maybe 6 hours, depending on how long it's going to take you. You could probably work like that. You could alternate between fuel sources, even if you're going to stop for a minute
And
to
take
2
a squares
minutes.
bar even if you enjoy that during it.
Yeah, squares bar or a Lucozade Sport. You could drink half of a Lucozade Sport. I just know a lot of liquid like that can sometimes sit in your stomach a lot when you're trying to run. So obviously very person dependent. But there's loads of different ways, and we always reiterate back to this. You have the fueling strategy, you have the knowledge now from what Caoileann's telling us, but it's all personal preference, and you nearly have to create the recipe of your protocol for yourself.
Don't panic if you try something and you're like, oh my god, like I had like explosive diarrhea, or I had the worst itch of mine.
I would panic if I...
Well, as in obviously, but I mean, don't
Don't
think,
panic, just keep going, you know, it'll be fine. No one's
don't take it as a sign to
Don't take it
not,
personal.
don't take it as a sign to not consume anything. Don't think anything I take now is going to give me
Red
explosive
flag,
diarrhea.
I would be gone. I am not doing
I
it
am
again.
never running again.
That's it.
What I mean is that particular
finding
thing,
new
like
sport.
if you tried jelly babies and the jelly babies gave you diarrhea, it's not that it's like, oh my god, I can't eat anything during it. It's just don't have jelly babies. Try something different. Try the Lucozade Sport. Try a gel. Try a different type of gel that uses a different type of carb. Because that's the other thing too, is like you could have a gel that your friend has and you just tried it and it did not sit well with you. Loads of gels are made with different combinations of types of carbs, like you've maltodextrin, cyclic dextrin, and like they'd use different combinations. So try different gels.
Yeah, and some are a wee bit more stomach friendly than others.
Yes.
Once again, test it, try it, do it on a back road in the countryside, so you're by yourself and you can get in your car and drive home.
I think one thing I would like to say, like for example, that year whenever you did it without the gels, like you kind of went into thinking, I don't need a gel. Like everything we're talking about here just means you're going to feel better, and 2, you're likely going to have a better performance. So there's no reason to not do it. Like there's no reason to think, no, I'll be fine without it. Like you'll be even better with it. Like, and that applies to even just like the simplest thing, like we'll chat about now in a second, in terms of like a general pre-training snack.
Yeah.
Every day you train, you are only going to feel better by having a pre-training snack. It's not going to do you a disservice. Don't think like it's an extra 150 calories before a training session. That means over a year, instead of you getting say 10% better, you're probably getting 20 to 25% better in terms of accumulation of effects. It's only going to make you better, so you're better off trying it and bringing it in. And then, as you say, the practicing, I would want you to practice your carb load as well, even if you did a full 1 day carb load. Like I imagine on your training plan, whatever it is, you'll have a race day practice.
Oh yeah, most plans would have like 2 weeks, 3 weeks before you'll have a simulation, and that's mainly built in because your body knows that amount of miles, you've covered that amount of volume, but also you have that chance to practice. And you basically get to simulate the race day that you're going to have to go through, and how the day before is going to feel, and any protocols you run through.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. We'll cap it there, and we'll put up some resources around carb loading. One thing I would say, don't just download a random resource off Instagram or anything where someone's like, this is your carb loading protocol, and it's giving you exact things to eat and exact things to run through, because personal preference comes into play. We'll give you some 600 grams, 700 grams.
I have 600 and I have an 800 already made, so I can put
and then
them
you can
up.
just tailor it for yourself.
Yeah.
Right. We've talked now middle of the park, 30 to 60 minutes, 30 to 90 minutes really, around that region. 90 minutes plus and your half marathon events. Now, if you're just going to the gym on a daily basis and you're trying to do your local CrossFit class, you're doing a HYROX class, you're just trying to go in and strength train, what would be your fueling protocol for it? What do you recommend? before I go into the gym this evening at 5 o'clock, what should I be doing?
So the meal before, say it could be 5
And
hours.
it's the only thing really matters to a certain extent.
For general day-to-day training,
That's what we're looking for.
I would just focus on like one each day at a time, because ideally like you're going a couple of times in the week. So if we're being picky, we're focusing on the meal before. As I say though, like it's everything typically from the day before that you're kind of utilizing this day. But on this sort of everyday, like for example, we're training 5 times a week, 6 times a week or whatever. So for us, like if we have a bad lunch, you'll know about it in that training session that evening. So that's why I'm starting there. So it is like if you're training in the evening at say between 5 to 7 p.m. or 7 p.m. later, this meal that you're having beforehand is probably where we're going to start. So it is. And ideally at most meals you are having complex carbs like we talked about. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, it's going to have a complex carb, but we're keeping a decent amount of protein. We're keeping probably 30 plus grams of protein, and we're also keeping some form of fruit or vegetable in there so that you're getting the bowels moving, you're getting everything you need. So that's every meal. But particularly this meal before, if it's 2 hours before, if it's 4 hours before, I would probably have this meal. I would try to have it at least 2 to 3 hours beforehand. I wouldn't have it any closer, because at that point it's probably still going to be sitting in you. So it is. But for some people, my issue is that their lunch could be at 12:30 and they're not training to 6 p.m. So there's like a 6 hour window. That's too long of a period of time to go without having anything. But anyway, this meal beforehand, complex carbs. So again, it could be sourdough, it could be half a bag of rice or a full bag of rice, potatoes. We don't need to overly, excessively have too much, but we're having some form of complex carb. Like if you're having a Caesar salad and it's only got croutons, that's not enough. Like I want you to have a bit of sourdough bread on the side or something along those lines, that you're getting a decent amount of complex carbs. If you're then just within a sort of 2 to 4 hour window, that then 30 to 60 minute window is where we have that pre-training snack. And it surprises me still to this day the amount of people that don't have a pre-training snack. This, and like it's an excuse for a little bit of extra sugar, do you know what I'm saying? Like, come on. But anyway, that could be classic squares bar. It could be, and this doesn't have to be the full 1 gram. Anything's better than nothing here. Like if you're literally stuck and you have been like, oh my God, I don't have anything, pick up a carton of like the little bobos in the shop of like a Centra orange juice, Tropicana, something like that. That will be absorbed even quicker. So if you're literally only drinking this on the way into your session, even during the warm-up, that's still going to be in your system by the time you get to the workout or whatever it is that you're doing. So I would still have something. Something's better than nothing, but ideally at least half of your body weight. So for me, if I'm 67 kilo, I'm aiming for closer to 30 grams of carbs. I typically do just have a squares bar. That's usually my go-to. That sees me through my 60-minute session. Happy days. So for most of us, something like a squares bar is enough. You, for example, it might be not enough. You might
I personally don't love squares bars. So
yes, Owen's not a big squares bar fan, but you typically would need something bigger anyway.
I tend to go towards like sourdough, banana and honey, things like that. Dried mango, I went in a phase of just like weighing out. You have to weigh out your dried mango or you're going to overconsume calories. So I would weigh out dried mango, put it in like a wee bag and take it with me, and that would be like my sweet before training.
Breakfast muffins, like we mentioned, are good. Crumpets.
They're good. Crumpets are good. Things like that. And I feel like they give me, if I eat them an hour before, I feel a lot more fulfilled and like they're more satiating than I would say squares bars. I would eat a squares bar and I'm like, I'm starving. I need to eat something else after this. And it doesn't make me feel good going into a training
Whereas
session.
some people, though, don't want to feel like they've had anything. So that's why something like that could be beneficial. But regardless, again, we're working off body weight here. Around half your body weight, up to 1 times your body weight, depending on what phase you're in. If you're in a deficit, you'll probably definitely stick around half. But if you're just at maintenance, you could probably do a little bit more if you want. You could do a squares bar or a banana plus a little bit of pure orange juice or apple juice.
Then fueling for just your average gym session is a lot easier.
100%.
And it's less prep needed. And if you're someone on track or you're in a deficit, that is just a matter of planning your day before, filtering in that snack or that pre-training snack into your daily calories, and you're not going to go off track. Don't be someone who's like, oh, I can't eat a pre-training snack because I don't have the calories allowed for that because I'm in a deficit. That's just per plan at the end of the day, and you're not. Number one, you're not maximizing your training, which is going to be detrimental to your ability to build muscle mass or look leaner or whatever your aesthetic goals are.
You're probably in your head, it's going to make the deficit even worse because you're feeling so shit.
Oh, you'll feel sluggish training. Like so many people have said that to me. They're like, oh, training's felt terrible. I'm eating in a deficit at the moment. I just don't have the fuel to train. And I'm like, that is not the way it works.
No.
It's all down to planning and when you schedule your carbs and in and how you prep your meals.
I always say this too, and we kind of mentioned it too before, but like if you're in a deficit, that does not, like a lot of people just go into a deficit thinking, oh, well, there goes my training gains. Like,
or I'm going to get weaker because I'm in a deficit. And yes, you need calories to get stronger. You need protein to rebuild the muscles. You need carbs to rebuild the muscles, and that's the recovery protocol. But you won't necessarily get weaker. You just need to plan better around when you're training, the
To
volume
be
you're
honest,
training, the
most
intensity.
people though, like general population, most people actually do still see a benefit to their strength because they likely just weren't even consuming enough protein
Yeah.
beforehand anyway.
And
So I
they're
would
under
not
eating
be.
and things and stuff. It's just a misconception, and it's what people get in their head. And once you start thinking about something, or you're like, I'm eating less calories, hence I'm getting less carbohydrates than I would have been before, so my training doesn't feel as fueled. Like, you're toxic sometimes.
Why would I do?
Caoileann would have a pizza on a Saturday night, and she'd wake up on Sunday morning and be like, I'm so fueled for training today, I'm gonna PB.
So toxic. So
and
toxic.
but that's a good mindset to have if you have a meal out or if you have something like that. Don't look at it as a bad thing, because we're trying to rewire your brain to be more positive when it thinks of things. So if you do have a pizza on a Sunday night, don't wake up on a Monday morning and be like, I wrecked it. I wrecked that last week, having that last night. Just be like, here, I'm training today. I'm back on track. I'm going to use
That's
them
what we're
extra
doing today because we had a
carb
big weekend
sources
eating
to
there for my
eat
birthday.
or to train harder today. And that's the way you can rewire your mind coming to that. But then on the other side, if you don't have a lot of calories and you're in a deficit, don't be thinking, I have no fuel to perform, hence I'm going to be
'cause
weaker
so
or
much of it
feel
is
more
psychological.
sluggish. Yeah, you already think yourself into a bad gym session or a bad performance by being like that. But when it comes to fueling for your average gym session, it's very basic, as Caoileann says. Work out your 1 gram per your body weight, half it, make that your goal about an hour before,
Yeah.
and then that's all you need to think about. If you're
And
someone
that is
who's
so
not,
simple.
yeah,
Like, and to add that one thing in that can make such a big difference across your entire week. Like, because a lot of people, the reason that we're adding that in, of course, anyway, is like, say you have that session or your meal beforehand. If you go onto this training session, you're already kind of at that lower level, like you're at fasting blood glucose basically, because you obviously haven't ate for a few hours. You then go into this training session, your blood glucose is now fucking on the floor when you come out of it because you're just using up more carbs. So whenever you come out, that's why a lot of people, one, faint or like feel so dizzy or feel so unwell or just feel like they have to eat something, like they're just like, fuck, I need something to pick me up again. They go across the shop, maybe get a Lucozade that's full of sugar. That completely defeats the purpose of what they just did. So that's why we want to have something like that beforehand so that we're coming out of the session then at a normal blood glucose level. We then go have a normal meal that's got everything in it that we need. We're happy days.
And then final thing, if you're someone who trains in the AM, there's always solutions, as Caoileann would reiterate, and we just chatted about a lot here. You can have a glass of pure orange juice, you can have something small, make sure the meal the night before, later in the evening, has maybe a bigger carb source if you know you're not going to eat physical food that next morning before training and you're just going to have a glass of pure orange juice. Just make sure you're getting something. 10 grams is better than no grams.
Yeah.
20 grams of carbs is better than nothing. Like, it's all going to be added, and it's like throwing 3 pieces of coal into a fire. It's going to burn something. Okay,
Yeah.
It's going to be something to burn, and that's going to give your body that wee bit of assistance.
Perfect.
Final thing, because we are touching 56 minutes to this,
Oh, right. Will we do the caffeine then?
caffeine.
Yes, let's talk
What
caffeine.
is the role of caffeine when it comes to training in general? We're
So-
going to keep this very broad. Because a lot of people I do know supplement caffeine and they use it as a PEA, performance enhancing accessory. It also is a PED in a sense, but
Yeah.
they use it as this, I'm going to train, I need to grab a Monster, a Red Bull,
Regardless
a
of the time that they're training at,
They
which
don't
is the
think
issue.
pre-training, they don't think carb source, they just think caffeine. I need
Yes.
caffeine for energy, to wake me up, to give me energy to train.
And to be fair, that is not their fault either. Like, if you think that caffeine is an energy provider, because literally every drink that has caffeine in it is called an energy drink. So they are, when they're not. So caffeine can't give you any energy. That's not what it does. Energy comes from calories. So something has to contain calories to provide energy. So whether it's from proteins, fats, carbs, we use carbs as our main source of energy because they produce the energy the quickest. Now, energy is technically what we call...
How many times can you say energy in
I
1
know,
minute?
drink every time I say energy. But energy is what we call ATP. So it's a thing called adenosine triphosphate. That's like energy's technical name. So it is. But caffeine doesn't produce that. That's not what it does. What it does is it gives you this reduced perception of fatigue. We have these things called adenosine in our brain. So whenever you wake up, the adenosine kind of naturally clears itself. But do you remember the analogy you made for this? Do you want to tell the people? No, you don't? Anyway, well,
What? I can't
if
even
you were to
remember.
wake up and say you just immediately buying caffeine in the morning. Again, this is not energy. If caffeine does not contain calories, like that's why if you picked up a white can of Monster, it might have 180 milligrams of caffeine, but it has like 11 calories. That's not coming from the caffeine. So if you wake up in the morning, you drink this caffeine, all that does is it kind of like unnaturally clears the adenosine. It like blocks the adenosine from clearing itself. That adenosine typically comes back again around afternoon time. You get this sort of afternoon lull, and then it's just not natural. So what we want to do is delay the caffeine a little bit in the morning time to allow that adenosine to naturally clear, so that you're finally just awake as it is, so that whenever you have the caffeine, it gives you this kind of rise in perception and stimulation in the brain that you're like, oh, I'm buzzed. That's not the same as you have an actual fuel in the tank. And so my issue is when people are having caffeine without carbohydrates, they're going into a session, and like if they do that on a long period of time and they rely on caffeine and potentially they're under fueling already, you're just setting yourself up for injury. Like all you're going to do there is, one, wreck your actual bone health, but two, your muscles, you're probably going to tear a hamstring, tear a quad, something's going to go, because if you don't have the fuel, even though you're buzzed, you feel like you can go further because you have a reduced perception of fatigue. So mentally you're like, no, I can keep pushing, I can keep going, which is good. That's why it is a performance enhancer. But at the same time, if you're underfueled, you're just setting yourself up for injury. So you are. So we want to be caffeinated with carbs. So if you are having caffeine,
I mean, not even the whole injury thing, because injury is so nuanced. I would say more underperformance. Like you think you should be able to do an X amount of weight, or especially if you're in the gym and you're trying to progress the overload week on week, and that's the progression you're following. If you're just waking up, banging a coffee, and then walking into the gym, and your body's not got that fuel, you're probably not going to be able to increase the loading from last week. And that's where the negative mindset comes in around not progressing, and things just compound. So just make sure that you're combining caffeine with some kind of fuel source.
Yes.
That's like the concoction that you want to, that's every kind of like pre-workout that you see out these days. They always have some form of dextrin, like maltodextrin, cyclic dextrin mixed in with them.
But some of them don't, which is the issue. Some of them are just caffeine with like creatine, L-citrulline, all these different things, which are beneficial in certain amounts. But most of the time, if you were to take a scoop of pre-workout, the amount of the pre-workout you would have to take to get the right amount of, say, creatine or of beta-alanine, you're then going to end up ODing on caffeine. So I would still rather...
Just make your own.
I would rather you just had a coffee. Like, for example, a black coffee would probably be like 80 milligrams of caffeine. A Red Bull is 80 milligrams of caffeine. Naco is like 180. Monster's like 165. So that's like a good gauge. And in terms of like baseline, how much you need, around 3 to 6 milligrams times your body weight is that sort of like golden amount in terms of like, and again, you have to work off body weight, because if you're 40 kilo and you're banging 180 milligrams, that's an awful lot of caffeine. If you have that twice a day, like if you have 2 cans of Naco, you're over your threshold, and all that's going to give you is anxiety and heart palpitations. So definitely in between 3 to 6 milligrams times your body weight is like our golden ratio. Things like tea do have caffeine. Even things like fizzy drinks like Coke Zero and stuff, they all contain caffeine too. So just being cautious that, especially in the evening time, I would typically always recommend no caffeine after 2 p.m. because it does have this long half-life, in that by the time you get to 10 p.m. midnight, the caffeine's still in your system, so you're still going to be stimulated, and that can then affect your sleep, which we don't want, because if your sleep shit, your food feels shit, your energy feels shit, you feel like you need the caffeine even more, so it's a vicious cycle, and then you kind of just end up relying on caffeine an awful lot. And unfortunately, it is a drug that you can get addicted to the point where people feel like it doesn't actually have any effect anymore.
Me.
You, literally. And so if they stop caffeine for a week, you have literal withdrawal symptoms, like you get migraines, you get headaches, because it is a drug that people tend to overuse. So if you can cap yourself at, say, 2 coffees a day, or 1 coffee and, say, 1 energy drink as such that contains caffeine, but before training session, like if you're training at 7 p.m, I wouldn't be banging a coffee or a Naco after 2 p.m. Like, if you've had caffeine before that, it's still going to be in your system.
If you're someone who really needs stimulants and you like the buzz off of caffeine, beta-alanine's a good option to try, because it doesn't have the caffeine content, but it also gives you that like tingling feeling that would, like a stimulant would, or a pre-workout gives you, and that's what you get from a pre-workout. If you ever take a pre-workout supplement and you're like,
the beta-alanine,
why do I like feel like my skin's all tingly and scratchy?
Your ears.
And your ears are like tingling. That is the beta-alanine content in it. That's not the caffeine. A lot of people misconstrue that this is the amount of caffeine in a pre-workout supplement.
It's an effect called paresthesia. When it comes from beta. Now the interesting thing is, like, a pre-workout might only have 2 to 3 grams of beta-alanine. You actually need 6 grams a day to get the overall performance benefits from it. But you can't just bang that 6 grams.
Rolling about the floor all day.
Oh, you couldn't hack it. You have to probably take something like beta-alanine 3 times a day. But again, we'll do like a full performance enhancing supplements podcast, so we will. But that's kind of our overall caffeine vibe. Don't be having it after 2 p.m. You're going to have enough in the system. The main thing in that evening time will be the carbs. But in the morning time, anything before 2 p.m, if you're going to train, caffeine plus carbs is like a dream combo.
Yeah,
so
and you're trying to take it a certain amount of time before you train as well. Just due
45 minutes, ideally, would be your golden nugget. Like, if you're walking into your session, it's not the same way when I talk about having pure orange juice. If you're really stuck and you're walking into a training session, you're only having it, that's still better than not having it. But if you're walking into a session and you're drinking your Naco, that's not really kicking in until the session's just finished. So it isn't. So I would try and have it at least in the car beforehand, or 45 minutes ideally before the actual session itself starts.
Yeah.
That would be ideal. So it would. But yes, that was good.
Sweet.
Good
so
buzz.
that's basically fueling for performance. Very obviously very basic in terms of the
Yes.
guidelines we're given there, because
We just
every
want to be
person
that.
is specific in terms of the nuances of body weight, your exercise that you're doing, the event that you're leading up to, even your, I would say, what level you're at in terms of your event. Like if you're an elite marathon runner, your fueling strategy is going to be slightly different
Yeah.
to just a beginner. If you do have any questions, reach out to us on the Better You Project, and we're happy to give you some detailed advice.
Yes,
And that's kind of
absolutely.
us.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.